It, Deacon Michael has your back, because in the sacristy I informed him to go with the long form of the gospel, and his immediate response was, "Does that indicate the short form of the homily?" So if you ever doubted him, he's got your back, huh? I said that in front of your mother, so you're going to be in trouble now, huh? So, I was at a Mass yesterday evening with Bishop Malone, and he began his homily with a question that I've often pondered myself, and certainly from him raising that question caused me through the evening and this morning again to continually reflect. And it's a very simple question. Sometimes we need to look just at the surface questions of the Scripture. And the question he posed was this. He said, why did Jesus call fishermen to be his apostles? I don't know if you've ever sat and thought about that. Why did he do that? And Bishop suggested, which was accurate, if he really wanted a brighter group of people, he would have gone to the temple where the scholars of the Scripture and the law were, and he could have gotten the well-educated, but it's not where he went. Why did he call fishermen? And I agree with the bishop's insight, like I would tell you I didn't, I agree with the bishop's insight. The fishermen are patient. I've only fished a couple times. I don't have the patience for it. You got to be patient and wait, huh? Patience. And certainly a knowledge. It's not an untrained profession, of course, a well-knowledged group of individuals. And beyond that profession, perhaps the Lord was really looking for those individuals of great quality that he knew he could entrust the mission of the gospel. It's a beautiful insight. The simple question that I pose further is why are we proposing to be disciples of Christ in the world today? And what does that really mean? I often take a step back and think, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, what is history going to write about us? I often think about that. And I think when it comes to church, sometimes, for those of us who are here and active, participating, what will be said about us? And I think it's an important question for us to each internalize and make personal. What is going to be written about you when history records the church and the world today? Sometimes we can look back in history and we can see Jesus' apostles, they traveled all over the place. Some of them were put to death. They were put in prison. They went about healing and teaching and preaching, and they did all these really substantial things. And sometimes maybe we can reduce our own lived example of faith to, let's get to Mass on Sunday, or maybe do a few extra works of service and charity. And maybe we overlook that real call of the meaning of a disciple of Christ in the world today, and to be able to see our own call as equal in greatness as were the apostles. The critical topic of our time, you've heard me speak about this many times, I think as history will record the Church of the United States in this particular period of history, the critical issue is the issue of human life. And the real question that each of us need to ask ourselves, what is it that we have done to support those who cannot defend themselves? That is the front line for us today. And the real question about our own particular stand for human life. As I mentioned, some 400 from the diocese will be going to Washington for the march on Friday. A number of our own youth from our own parish going to that march on Friday. I'm so grateful for them doing that. But what is our own personal stand for human life? You see, we often want to say this is a political issue and the church shouldn't be involved in politics. It is not a political issue, it is a God issue. The issue of human life existed far before politics was ever thought of, and certainly the issue of human life existed far before this nation ever became a country. It is not a political issue, it is an issue of God. God is the author of all life, human and divine. And God has charged us with the task to be those missionaries of life in the world today. And the question is, what are you doing for that mission? It was very interesting to watch the news unfold yesterday and to see images of the Women's March in Washington and other parts of the country. I don't know if you saw it. I take a step back and wonder, what is it that they are looking for? The signs that they were holding, the words that were written on them should never be uttered anywhere, let alone a church. And many of the words, vulgar in nature, they were putting forward as an agenda. It makes you have to take a step back and say, what is it that we are exactly promoting in this march yesterday? I guarantee you, as you see many women as well as men march on this coming Friday, there will be no vulgarity. There will simply be the urgent plea to sustain and support human life. We need to take a step back. With all of the violence in our own country in the last few months, and really begin to question those purporting the violence. What culture are they looking to live within? I would suggest to you it's a culture of violence. If your natural reaction is violence, that is what you're looking to promote. We are looking to promote a culture of life. And each of us needs to take it seriously to promote that culture of life. And it begins right here in the state of New York. We live in one of the most liberal states in the Union and one of the most pro-death states in the Union. And right now in Albany is Bill A-1748. A-1748 is the expansion of abortion, which was introduced to the Assembly, I believe is already passed in the Assembly, and now will go to the Senate. And that is a very dangerous bill. And my guess is the majority of us do not even know it exists. That bill, all in relation to the expansion of abortion, calls for late-term abortions even in the 9th month. It's what it's calling for in the state of New York. It is calling to empower non-doctors to perform abortions. How that is even good for a woman's health, I do not know. It is calling for compelling people in the medical field to provide abortions even if they object in conscience and religious belief, that they will not be able to practice medicine any longer if they do not comply in promoting and performing abortions. It eliminates many of the protections for pregnant women in our state, and it will definitely, without doubt, without question, increase the number of abortions present in our nation. I can't urge you enough to really go online and read about this bill. The New York State Catholic Conference of Bishops outlines it beautifully, as well as our Catholic position. And maybe you are in this time and place, just as I am in this time and place, to fight this battle for life. As Pope, now Saint John Paul II, stated in Denver, Colorado, to a group of pilgrims where I was present during World Youth Day. He said, "Young pilgrims, the outcome of the battle for life has already been decided, and life will be victorious. But you are called to fight the battle in order for it to be victorious." This week, if you are not taking time to drive to Washington to be part of the march, at least take some time to call your state senator, write a letter to them to defeat this egregious law attacking unborn life. I remember my dad very well told me that the most important part of the newspaper where you learned the greatest truth were the comics. And he read them first every day. And I remember a comic strip of Hagar the Horrible, which I have framed. And it's 2 frames. You gotta love Hagar the Horrible, you know. And the first frame, Hagar's not having a good day, and he's, arms up yelling at God. And he's saying to God basically, why are all of these problems going on in our world? And the second frame is a bolt of lightning coming down from heaven, just missing Hagar. And the voice, the caption of God saying, well, I sent you people to solve all of these problems, but you chose to abort their lives. Can you begin to quantify the number of contributions to our culture, our society, our medical advancement that have been terminated because they were never allowed that very basic gift of life? I have asked so many attorneys to define for me what that really means. It is the first of the rights, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No one can really explain for me what that means. I think I know what it meant in the mind and heart of those who founded this nation. Also in the Albany, to be voted upon is another bill on the expansion of euthanasia, which will basically give doctors the freedom and right to prescribe lethal doses of medications for someone to take to terminate their own life if they feel they are too ill or incapacitated. The genocide continues, and we wonder why we have riots in the street. We wonder why we have bullying. We wonder why we have countless in Western New York dying of drug overdoses, and the list can go on and on and on. It begins with a respect for life in the womb, and once that respect for life exists in the womb, then the respect for life will exist outside of the womb. Please take your discipleship seriously. Question what history will write of you, what history will write of me, what history will write of our church as we confront the most important battle, the battle of life. That is the issue given to us to preach the gospel in the name of Christ in the world today.